Hello, Gary Champion, Psychic Medium. This morning I thought I'd make a video about the predictability of the future. And I'm supposed to use myself, I guess. So when I was 15 or so, I predicted my own death at the age of 30, that I wouldn't live past that. Saw it clearly in a car accident, real clear. And around my 30th birthday, I was driving out in the country at night in Louisiana, and the road ended. The car went off a cliff and stuck in the ground. I survived. I survived because I predicted my own death. At that time, so it was a long time ago, people didn't wear seatbelts all the time, and cars didn't have airbags, and any of that stuff. 50% of the people you'd see driving didn't wear seatbelts, and there wasn't a law against it. And I began buckling up. If I had to pull out of the driveway and wash the car, I always had the seatbelt buckled. And at one point, the seatbelt began to fail, no longer, clicked together and worked right. The mechanism was broken. I had it replaced immediately. And that night, I was saved by that seatbelt, having known that I was close to that moment. And the car drove again. It was kind of straighten it out. No damage to the engine or anything. That was very strange. And I had a big blood welt across my body where the seatbelt caught me from the impact. Anyway, all my bones are all messed up for a while. The predictability of the future is not absolute. So sometimes in giving a reading, I'll tell someone something's going to happen. And as I was talking to someone the other day that said I'd talked to her before, and I don't remember these readings, so there's no way I possibly could. But she said that what I predicted had happened exactly. And I get a lot of that. I get a lot of emails saying you predicted 2 years ago that this would happen, and it did happen. And why is the future so unpredictable? Because you're not predictable. If I tell you something's wrong with your blood, it's just a good example. I don't believe I've ever said that, but it's possible I've said it 100 times. I don't have any memory of it. And you go to a doctor and you get it checked, and sure enough, there's an imbalance there, something that's very dangerous, and you get it checked on and live happily ever after. The death path you were on is changed to a life path. Future is bendable. It can be rigid at times because you're rigid. You don't want to change. You believe that, okay. Knew a guy who was a motorcycle rider. He and his wife rode motorcycles all the time. They had 2 kids. And they were talking one day about helmets. And the helmet laws had just come in. This is a long time ago. And they weren't going to wear helmets. They wanted to feel the wind in their hair, and they wanted to experience the outdoors. And if they had to wear helmets, they didn't want to ride, and they weren't going to give up riding, and blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, but you need that helmet. You better have that helmet on all the time. You might even sleep in it. Of course, they didn't buy helmets. And the kids were playing around and said, we've told our kids that if we die on a motorcycle accident, it's the way we wanted to go. Not very reassuring for a 7-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid to hear that from your parents, like they don't care about life. They're going to live their life without it. Well, they both passed in the same accident. They knew it was wrong. They knew there was a good chance that they weren't going to live if they didn't wear seatbelts. And they were sort of amateur riders anyway, weekend warriors. And left those 2 kids, I think a relative took them in. Sister or something took them in. Husband. 40, 50 years ago. I can't remember. But I remember the face that he gave me when he was all kind of like the face I just gave you about how they can't tell me what to do. I'm going to ride my motorcycle the way I want to experience life the way. And they're dead. They're gone. And their kids grew up without their parents. Because you're inflexible, the future does get rigid. If you're flexible, the future is flexible. You see what I mean? I was going down a road to do something in my life. I can't remember what it was. And I did a meditation one night in the front yard of where we lived. And I was clearly told to do a certain thing or there would be consequences. So I went to college. I majored in a certain thing. I survived it all. And back then you had a 2S deferment. And college deferment, school deferment. You didn't go in the military until there was a draft. Everybody was draftable. Everybody who was a male of the age of 18 or wasn't in school or whatever, the draft board would draft you and you'd be in the Army in a few weeks. I graduated from college, and 10 days later, I had a 1A rating, which means they could just take me. And I think I've still got the card somewhere. And because I did go to college and major in that certain thing, and it took 5 years to do instead of 4. In other words, the setting up of the college, I was out, and 10 days after I got my 1A, they dropped the number to one number below mine. I was 144. They drew lottery numbers on certain birth dates. That was your number. And they were drafting up to 195 at that time. So they were way over my number, so assured that I was going. And I parked the car underneath some trees and gave the key to my father and said, drive it, sell it, whatever, I'm going to be in the military. And my brother was already in the military. He was in the Air Force in Germany, medical stuff. And I can remember because he had that little military mustache. It was so awful. You had to shave it above your lip and everything. Anyway, I got out. The number dropped one below mine 10 days after I got my 1A, which I should have really been gone, so I never went. So the consequences of picking this major versus that major, this one took 5 years, that one took 4 years, stretched it out a year, missed the draft, didn't get shot up in Vietnam. You see what I'm talking about? The future's flexible if you're flexible. And there are always ways to kind of figure out ways to avoid things. Future is not fixed. It's bendable. It's movable. If you adjust, it adjusts. You're going in tandem down through life. And if you turn this way, then it'd be this hand. If you turn this way, your path turns that way. You turn that way, your path turns that way. It's adjustable. But you've got to have foresight enough to see to turn left or right, or to stay on the road, or to go backward if you can back up from what you're doing. Future's not fixed. You can alter it. People get all fatalistic. Oh, I'm going to die when I'm 30. I won't live any longer than that, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, they do. They probably saw their death like I did. The difference is I altered what I was doing to be safe. And I lived, and I can't even remember when that was, somewhere in the 70s, I think. So like 40, 50 years later, I'm still kicking because I was listening. Little tip for all you airplane flyers: if you have intuitive abilities, as you're going on the plane, touch that cowling or the door frame, that aluminum part of the plane as you go in. Touch it and see what kind of feeling you get. I've never gotten one that said don't get on the plane, but I'm still checking. No fear, no regret, no anger. Thanks for watching.